Really interesting article here by Max Blumenthal at the Gray Zone. I can't say I've honestly come across any work from him that hasn't been really fascinating and illuminating on some level. And if you ever get a chance to check out the Moderate Rebels podcast, I highly recommend that you do. It's hosted by Max Blumenthal and Ben Norton, both writers. I believe Blumenthal was the founder of the Gray Zone, and his just humor is really, really off the charts. But anyways, our title of this article, Biden, Iran envoy boasted of depriving civilians of food, driving up Iranian inequality and sadistic sanctions manual. And I believe that is the person in reference there, Richard Nephew. So he is the, I believe, deputy Iran envoy Richard Nephew, as the former principal deputy coordinator of sanctions policy for Barack Obama. Again, like, sanctions, when they're being leveled against these countries by the U.S., are war crimes. They disproportionately target and impact civilians, the most vulnerable, the most oppressed, the poorest, the people who could least afford sanctions, and it leads to lots of death and suffering in all these countries that the U.S. is currently waging this form of siege warfare against, and it's fucking disgusting. And again, this is another thing that hasn't changed at all from the Trump administration to the Biden administration. That needs to be called out, and need to try to put pressure on the Biden admin to get rid of these. I don't frankly have much hope in that regard, but at least fucking point it out. I mean, Jesus Christ. Nephew took personal credit for depriving Iranians of food, sabotaging their automobile industry, and driving up unemployment rates. And again, only reason they're doing this is because they didn't like how Iran, they didn't want Iran to have any self-determination. They basically just wanted them to shut up and become a puppet for the U.S. and the U.S. allies in these other Western countries. It's disgusting. Nephew has described the destruction of Iran's economy as a tremendous success, and lamented during a visit to Russia that food was still plentiful in the country's capital despite mounting U.S. sanctions. I mean, what a fucking disgusting ghoul. Nephew's appointment to senior diplomatic post suggests that rather than immediately returning to the JCPOA nuclear deal, the Iran nuclear deal, as it's, most people know it by, the Biden admin will finesse sanctions illegally imposed by Trump to pressure Iran into erroneous, reworked agreement that Tehran is unlikely to join. And again, it needs to be pointed out every fucking time we talk about the Iran nuclear deal. Iran was in complete compliance when the U.S. under the Trump administration unilaterally pulled out of it. But now the U.S. is wanting some concessions from Iran in order for the U.S. to rejoin. Get the fuck out of here. No, the U.S. should be like, whatever you need us to do, we'll do it. Please rejoin. That is the type of attitude the U.S. State Department should be coming at this. But they're not. The Biden administration is continuing to level these horrible, disgusting fucking sanctions, which again are fucking crimes against humanity. After coordinating Obama's sanctions regime against Iran, Nephew left the admin for a position at the energy industry-funded Center on Global Energy Policy at Columbia U. There he published a book outlining in blunt terms how he honed the craft of economic warfare and applied it against Iran. Entitled The Art of Sanctions, A View from the Field, the book's cover image features two Caucasian hands drawing a rope for a noose, presumably to strangle some inefficiently pliant global South Korea. Its contents read like a list of criminal confessions detailing in chillingly clinical terms how the sanctions Nephew conceived from inside an air-conditioned office in Washington immiserated average Iranians. With his candor, Nephew has shouted the official U.S. rhetoric about targeted sanctions that exclusively punish bad actors and their business cronies while leaving civilian populations unharmed. I just read Nephew's The Art of Sanctions. Nephew, ex-Obama State Department sanctions coordinator, clinically and chillingly details how pain is the essence of the U.S. global sanctions regime. Unfortunately, he hasn't been honest about the contents of his own book thread. The Art of Sanctions. I mean, Jesus, like, just the gall of somebody to think, like, that was a good idea to talk about how, like, these, like, it's a fucking, yeah, like Blumenthal pointed out, like, the noose is literally tightening around those countries, like, implying, like, death, destruction, harm. That's all the fucking sanctions do. They're not helping anybody. They're not helping anybody in those countries. Obviously, they're not helping anybody in the U.S. It's just another form of regime change effort, and try to, push these countries who don't completely bend to the will of the U.S. and their allies. It's disgusting. The application of pain to a country's civilian population is central to Nephew's sanction strategy. As he explains in The Art of Sanctions, for the unilateral coercive measures to succeed, they must impose significant pains to the state's most vulnerable, vulnerable sectors, which, again, exactly what I said. The sanctions are always going to impact and hurt the people who can least afford to be impacted by the sanctions. Shatter the state's political and social resolve, and ultimately forced to cry uncle in the face of Washington's demands. So it looks like here's an excerpt. Identify the objectives for the imposition of pain and define minimum necessary. Jesus. This guy's really fucking sadistic and sick. I mean, fuck. Develop a strategy to carefully, methodically, and efficiently increase pain on those areas that are vulnerabilities while avoiding those that are not. I mean, fuck. Nephew detailed how, as JCPOA negotiations got underway in January 2012, he led a process to reduce Iran's oil revenue and starve its economy. I mean, fuck. Iran's economy went from GDP growth from 3% to a 6% contraction. He's bragging about, literally starving their fucking economy. I mean, God. And this is Biden's deputy envoy to Iran, this fucking sadistic, sick ghoul. His nephew Jesus Christ. There were some goods that nephew wanted Iran to import, however, in hopes of expanding the... Jesus. Rising chicken prices. Chicken prices tripled in 2012. God damn, dude. Here we go. While discussing his book, The Art of Sanctions, Richard Nephew boasted with a wide grin that the economic warfare, which is exactly what sanctions are, economic warfare tactics he devised drove up unemployment rates in Iran. Nephew was just appointed. Here we go. Let's check this out.
For them, it wasn't just about oil. It was also about their ability to diversify their economy. We started targeting, for instance, automotives in Iran in June of 2013 to be able to go after other aspects of their national industry and to go after things like unemployment. To try and help drive that up.
Jesus, so fucking disgusting. Look at, he's fucking grinning and smiling. Again, how is this any fucking different than Trump's State Department and fucking equally disgusting ghouls like Mike Pompeo, the oligarchs? He said it was just about the oligarchs, but his book tells another story. Obama admin destroying the economic prospects of Iran's working class majority while ensuring that only the wealthy or those in position of power could take advantage of Iran's continued connectedness, he wrote. As stories began to emerge from Iran of intensified income inequality and inflation, Nephew pronounced another success. As he made clear, the rising inequality was a choice that Washington made on the basis of helping drive up pressure on the Iranian economy from internal sources. Nephew went on to claim credit for October 2012 protests brought by the devaluation of Iran's currency. Jesus. Caused a catastrophic shortage of medicine and medical devices, largely because average Iranians could not afford them. And again, it's not targeting the oligarchs, the wealthy. This is always going to impact the people who can at least afford medicine, cars, food, whatever it may be. I mean, for fuck's sake. Appears to be devoid of contrition. During a 2016 trip to Moscow, he complained that despite the sanctions imposed on Russia by the U.S., food is still widely available at local restaurants, hardly a level of pain that was necessary to bring the Kremlin to. So he's still like doubling down on these disgusting siege warfare tactics, whether it's Iran or Russia. Quote, develop a strategy to carefully, methodically, and efficiently increase pain on those areas of the Russian economy that are vulnerabilities and avoid those that are not. I mean, so who is he? When he's not snatching chicken from Iranian kids during their winter holiday, nephew is spending quality time in his own amusing them with his tattered dad rock t-shirts and flashing arms adorned with tribal tattoos. I've got soft as down, more holes than this. I'm breaking up. Hide. Boom. Immediate reaction. Wife. Oh Lord, son, you look like a pirate. Daughter 1. Well, you're so cool. You wear a Led Zeppelin T-shirt, and you're support of the genocide of the massive starvation of Iranian people, and support the people in Russia dying as well for U.S. geopolitical interests. But yeah, rock on, Led fucking Zeppelin. That's so cool, dude. Jesus Christ. Occasional. And an admin filled with fun-loving, ethnically diverse characters who moonlight as rock guitarists, decorate the walls of their homes in Haitian art, bob their heads to Tupac, and even enjoy an occasional toke, all while keeping the gears of a ferociously violent empire grinding along. The tattooed sanctions artist seems like a perfect fit. Meanwhile, in Iran, a leading daily recently portrayed nephew as Keanu Reeves in the horror film The Devil's Advocate. His elevation to senior diplomatic role is viewed as a sign of more pain to come. Look at that. That's awesome. Oh, there you go. So, again, I'm not seeing any positive change coming foreign policy-wise between Trump administration and Biden's. And if you are, I would love to hear in what regard that is, because it's just more fucking sick, disgusting imperialism, and the world now more than ever doesn't need that fucking bullshit. Like the video if you like the damn video, subscribe for more content, all part of the people. Peace, much love.